Hi there, and welcome to Aniplot Recaps. The story begins with our main protagonist Takuma Sakamoto, who introduces himself and his MMO character Diablo as the true demon lord in the game. Without warning, he's summoned to an alternate world as his MMO character and his summoners then each kisses him on his left and right cheek. Astonished by his predicament, Diablo summons an elf and a Pantherian debate who summoned him. Both believe they were the ones as they follow the summoning ritual procedures including the kiss. Upon learning this, Diablo is left surprised that he was kissed and regrets not enjoying it further. As the two summoners continue to debate who summoned Diablo and unintentionally reveal to the curious Diablo that he's at the top of a large stone tower known as the Starfall Tower. Approaching the bickering ladies, Diablo realizes that for the longest time he's never really talked with anyone all of his life, which leaves him in quite a predicament. Therefore, Diablo decides to act in his MMO character persona and then addresses the two in a commanding manner, ordering the two to shake hands with a smile. Initially hesitant to do so, an overwhelming power forces the two to obey Diablo's command. After this is done, slave collars appear on both of the summoners' necks, which astounds all three of them. At the bottom of the tower, the trio walks and talks about the failed ritual. In it, Diablo realizes that his demon lord ring reflected the enslavement spell onto his would-be enslavers. Detailing to his summoners that magic does not affect him, the group heads to the nearby town to dispel the enslavement spell on them. The elf realizing that she and her companion haven't introduced themselves to Diablo, she introduces herself as Shara L. Greenwood, an aspiring adventurer. Her companion, the Pantherian, introduces herself as Rem Galoo and she seeks to improve her skills as an adventurer. Being labeled as a rare summoned creature, Diablo denotes that statement, and not wanting to reveal himself as a shut-in, he proclaims that he's a demon lord. Hearing this impresses Shara that she managed to summon a demon lord, which annoys Rem, sparking another argument between the two. This is stopped by Diablo, who snaps at the two and they then continue forth to the city. Reaching their destination of Falter City, they check in at the Peace of Mind Inn where they're greeted by the bubbly innkeeper May. Nauseous over being in what he considers a large crowd, Diablo is further shocked that Shara wants to register a room that's shared with Diablo. The reason behind this is due to the lack of funding they have, and Rem chimes in insisting that Diablo stay in her room as she was the one who summoned him. An argument sparks between the two and they're stopped by May, who threatens to throw them out. It's then revealed that the three of them will share a room with a single bed. Contemplating his predicament over the use of a single bed, a woman acquainted with Rem named Celestine Baudelaire and her two followers enter the room. Diablo recalls the name and Shara states that Celestine is the head of the Mages Association. Remembering Celestine, or Celeste as she wishes to be called, is a prominent figure in the Cross Reverie game as the one who maintains the barrier in the city. Celeste's initial motive was to talk with Rem, however, seeing the slave collars on Rem and Shara's necks along with Diablo being there, she states her curiosity about their situation. That night at the inn's cafeteria, Celeste is brought up to date with everything involving the failed enslavement ritual. She's also informed that Diablo is unable to dispel the enslavement cast on them. Diablo asks in an authoritarian manner about her business with them, which causes a rebuke from one of her followers named Gallic. Although internally Diablo is frightened by Gallic, he gives a menacing retort that irks him and is also reproved by his superior Celeste. The subject then changes to a brief conversation between Celeste and Rem, who declines to have more bodyguards assigned to her despite Celeste's well-meant intentions. With that settled, Celeste's party leave for the night and Diablo asks Rem about her relationship with Celeste. Rem refuses to speak about it and Diablo has an epiphany that Rem's secret is related to an important main story event that's best to learn about it beforehand to avoid a preventable disaster in the future. Grabbing Rem and placing her on his shoulder, Diablo takes her back to their room to torture her. Back in their room, Diablo tortures Rem in a light and innocent manner until she finally confesses her secret to him. Rem reveals that she has the Demon Lord Krebscume sealed within her body, and Diablo recalls the Demon Lord as the strongest boss in the game. Stating that she wishes to release and extinguish Krebscume's soul from her body, Diablo then details that doing that would kill Rem in the process. Furthermore, he deduces that Rem's relationship with Celeste is because of this goal of hers and that Celeste is the only one privy to Rem's predicament. The sealing of the Demon Lord is also hereditary, as Rem's mother had Krebscume sealed in her body before she died. Fully aware of Rem's predicament, Diablo vows to help Rem, which gets her emotional as Diablo won't leave her because of her condition. Afterward, Diablo goes on an excursion around the town while reflecting on how he's done everything all by his lonesome due to his nature. Eventually, he's approached by Gallic and his colleagues from the Mages Association. This leads to an altercation between Diablo and Gallic, who summons a level 30 salamander. While Gallic boasts and threatens Diablo about his summon, Diablo notes that while impressive, Its level is way too weak. The salamander then belches a blaze of fire at Diablo, who walks out of it unscathed. Panic-stricken, Gallic orders the summon to incinerate Diablo, and the salamander fires a massive flamethrower-like attack from its mouth. However, the attack still does not affect level 150 Diablo. Equipping his wand, Diablo then casts an explosion that eviscerates the salamander. Approaching the confuddled Gallic, who demands to know who Diablo is, Diablo answers that he's a Diablo, a demon lord from another world. Episode 2. Awakening in the Peace of Mind Inn, Diablo realizes that his experiences from the previous day weren't a dream. Diablo then puts himself into an awkward situation in bed with the two ladies. Later that day, while walking in the streets, Diablo notes the various races that appear in the world. It's detailed by Diablo that where they're walking there are no humans around, to which, Rem answers the district they're walking in is for demi-humans only. Internally, Diablo notes the race disparity between humans and demi-humans and then asks if levels are the main concept of strength in the world. Shara confirms it, but has yet to learn her level, and Rem claims that she's a level 40 summoner. The place where they're heading to currently, the Adventurers Guild, should be able to discern Shara's level once she registers there. At the Adventurers Guild, a fight between two beastmen occurs and the overall atmosphere of the place has Diablo nervous. Wasting no time, the trio head to the second floor to register themselves as adventurers. Unable to read, Diablo has Shara register him, but states it as he loathes tedious and trivial work, and Shara enjoys the fact as it reinforces that she's his true master. Things, however, get more complicated when a blood seal is needed in the final process. Although he's anxious to do this, Diablo puts on a brave face and what he considers, gives himself a tiny cut on his thumb. On the other hand, his tiny cut turns out to be deeper than he anticipated. Next, the group stands before a mirror that appraises their levels. Shara is level 30, much to her dismay, then Diablo goes next, and a scene where the mirror spaz out occurs. This attracts the attention of the guildmaster Sylvie, who asks the trio to come into her office. Inside the office, Sylvie states that due to Diablo's high level there aren't any job requests he can take. However, Diablo is willing to work regardless as he only cares about the rewards. Hence, Sylvie assigns the group to subjugate a Madara snake in the man-eating woods. On the way to the woods, the group discusses the job they've been assigned and how its requester was thought to be Celeste from the Mages Association. Shara details that they're surrounded, therefore, Diablo casts Burst Rain, setting part of the woods ablaze and pulling the ambushers out of hiding. Said ambushers were elves, one of whom, Shara knew as Celsior, who claims he was there to rescue her. Celsior aims his bow and arrow at Diablo while demanding he releases Shara, the princess of the Kingdom of Greenwood. Unamused by the elves' antics, Diablo casts Freesia, which freezes the periphery into ice. Out of nowhere, Gallic appears and chastises the elves, who are, in turn, berated by Diablo and reprimanded by Rem. Distraught, Gallic flees the scene, and Shara orders the elves to inform her brother that she's never returning home. That night in their room at the end, Shara and Diablo have a heart-to-heart with each other that is interrupted by a livid Rem. Right before Diablo and the others were about to leave the Adventurers Guild, a man known as Emil stops them and confronts Diablo. Haughtily, Emil introduces himself as not only a superhuman level 50 warrior and challenges Diablo to a duel. Emil uses the sword ability, Sword Smite, against Diablo, but he parries the blow with his wand. For his next move, Emil tries to use another sword skill called Alp's Fall, but is knocked out by Diablo before he could. Now privy to the whole situation, Emil laughs off the situation and apologizes for his behavior from before. Reaching the bridge of Ulug, they're stopped by a group of soldiers who mistake Diablo for a fallen. However, one of the soldiers named Boris recognizes him as the horned demon everyone was talking about in the town. The two then learn from Boris that a fallen with a large army of demons is heading that way. Noting that this sort of event never occurred in the games, Diablo wonders what could have triggered it. Diablo volunteers to stay and fend off the invasion. At the inn, Celeste informs Rem that she discharged Gallic for his recent actions. Just then a hysterical Gallic arrives at the scene with his hands all bloody, demanding to hear from Celeste that he wasn't fired from the Mages Association. Right as Gallic was about to stab himself with a black demonic dagger, Rem tries to stop him by summoning a shadow snake. This fails as Gallic still manages to stab himself and then transforms into the fallen Gregor. Meanwhile, Diablo continues fighting against the demon invaders, until the commander of the demons named Edelgard confronts him and the two then fight. Refugees head into Falter City believing they'll be safe from the incoming demon invaders. Rem and Celeste escape from the Peace of Mind Inn, and once they reach a dead end, Gregor confronts the two, and Rem summons a Solau. However, the summon is easily beaten with a single punch. From the sky, Emile lands nearby Rem and Celeste, while a large group of adventurers arrives at the scene to help them. Emile then fights against Gregor, but despite being overpowered by his opponent, he stubbornly fights on, following his creed as a defender of all women. Meanwhile, at the bridge of Olug, Diablo's fight against Edelgard continues. Just then Boris notifies Diablo that Falter city has been invaded by a fallen and attacking Celeste and Rem. By that time, Gregor has already defeated the adventurers that surrounded him, and a heavily wounded Emile refuses to concede defeat. Just then, Diablo arrives and casts a wind spell on Gregor, sending him backward. Starting the fight off, Gregor casts Dark Bullet, but the spell is instantly reflected at Gregor by Diablo's ring. Diablo then uses his own Dark Bullet spell that breaks off most of Gregor's protective skin. In retaliation, Gregor uses Dark Press, however, that move is reflected back onto Gregor, and Diablo then casts multiple Dark Press of his own. The gravitational force of the attack pins Gregor to the ground, who then begs for mercy, but Diablo shows none. He then finishes Gregor off with the magic spell Naraku. 10 days later, after the attack on the city, Diablo rests on his bed and is nearly courted by Shara, who is sequentially stopped by Rem with a dropkick. This causes the two to latch onto Diablo's arms until Sylvie arrives in their room. She informs the group that the Lord of the City was given a non-negotiable ultimatum to hand over Shara within 10 days or else war would be waged. Hence the Lord of the City and Sylvie request Diablo to prevent the war from occurring. The trio are then led by Sylvie to the Lord's manor and disclosed what information Sylvie has on the said Lord. Arriving at the manor, the group is introduced to the Lord of the City, Chester Ray Galford. Elated that he successfully spoke without hesitation, Galford mentions the report of Diablo being a demon lord from another world. Retorting that question, Diablo speaks in character, which flusters the group, but Galford takes no offense to the comment and further elaborates on his request. Galford then claims the situation at hand could easily be resolved by Shara merely surrendering herself to the Kingdom of Greenwood, but Diablo refuses to allow that. Galford then introduces an Imperial Knight from the capital, a woman by the name of Alicia Christella. Back in the streets of the city, the group head to a weaponsmith. Diablo intends to get a weapon that'll make it easy for him to handle weaker opponents. They do so, and Diablo purchases a scythe for himself. Right as they were going to an apothecary to buy potions, the group was ambushed by bounty hunters who kidnapped Shara. They're all dealt with by Diablo. Celeste visits Diablo's party to inform them that she's found someone who could remove the slave collars off Rem and Shara's. Diablo decides that resolving the matter with the slave collars won't hinder their progress with the Kingdom of Greenwood. The group at the slave market, where Diablo is a tad surprised by the slaves' treatment there. The owner of the establishment, Medios, greets the group and at first believes that Diablo is trying to sell off one of his slaves. This earns Medios a sharp retort from Diablo, whose magical energy starts to exude out of his body, which Medios notices. Shara also details that she can see Diablo's magical power as well, which shocks Rem and Alicia. Back inside the caravan, Diablo learns how to remove the slave collar through magical flow and physical contact. Immediately as Alicia was going to retire to her room at the inn, the sound of a flute could be heard from outside the room. A young-looking male elf was Shara's older brother Kira, who cordially introduces himself to the group. Furious at the man, Diablo confronts Kira, noting how he put a bounty on Shara's head, and he confirms it. Not wanting to start a scene, Kira leaves, but says that he'll return the following day. At the Kingdom of Greenwood, Kira stands on top of a tall tree while playing his flute. When finished, he proclaims that Shara will be his again and she'll bear his child.